Hey everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to The Good Trouble Show. Every June, the LGBTQ plus community celebrates Pride Month. It's an opportunity to celebrate, peacefully protest, and raise awareness of the issues facing the LGBTQ plus community. During Pride Month, cities nationwide fly the rainbow flag to support this event. However, in a surprise move, Huntington Beach, California banned the rainbow flag. Please welcome an activist currently serving 8054 as an elected party delegate, Stonewall Democratic Club as an at-large member with a focus on the situation happening in Huntington Beach. Please welcome activist Stephen Martin. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing good, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How's this weather? I feel like I feel like here in Los Angeles we've been this is kind of like turned into Seattle. I mean, we've needed the rain, but I'm like ready for it to kind of stop.
Yeah, I totally feel that. It's been raining nonstop here in downtown, and we have cracks forming in the streets of my neighborhood. So I'm ready for it to stop.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Okay, so firstly, thank you for joining us. So before we get into what has occurred in Huntington Beach, for the viewers that aren't familiar with your important activism, give us a little bit of a background on your activism and the causes that have been important to you.
Sure. Yeah. So in 2016, I was diagnosed with an incurable form of leukemia known as chronic myeloid leukemia. It does have a medicine that I can take as a pill daily, and it keeps it at bay. But with that came the pressure to react when Donald Trump became president. During the Affordable Care Act fights, I led thousands of activists nationwide to respond and take action to the repeal to the Affordable Care Act, and then generally just resisted Trump throughout his administration on policies that I felt were degrading to the dignity of humanity, and found myself in spaces that I wouldn't have normally seen myself, supporting candidates and getting Democrats elected nationwide, and going on to help Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win their presidency through any supportive ways that I could through storytelling.
That's, I tell you what, thank God that we have President Biden in the White House. So
I agree.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, now, so we have a video of what you had to say to the city council folks at Huntington Beach. But before we get into that, for those folks that aren't familiar with Pride Month, give us a little bit more background on it, aside from kind of how I explained it at the beginning.
Yeah, so Pride Month originally has its roots as the Queer Liberation Parade that started in 1976 and has gone on to be the nationally recognized month for LGBT people to celebrate their uniqueness, diversity, and all of the cultural contributions that we make to the United States and the world. And it's a time where we celebrate our culture through music, food, coming together, dance, political dialogue, and action.
And you grew up in Huntington Beach, correct?
Correct. I grew up in Huntington Harbor. My father moved there in 1993. I lived there all the way up until 2011 and have lived nearby. And I still have family in the region. So
what was it like? Because my understanding of Orange County, which is where Huntington Beach is located, it's part of Orange County. That Orange County tends to be a very politically conservative, very Republican part of California. I know that most people, like before I moved here, I always thought that like the entirety of California was very liberal, but moving here, that was one of the things I quickly discovered was that that is not the case. And Orange County is certainly representative of the conservative movement. So growing up in Huntington Beach as a queer youth, what was that like? I mean, what were the challenges that you faced in growing up in a very conservative part of California?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as Reagan once said, Orange County, California is where good Republicans go to die.
Oh,
and
wow.
Huntington Beach has a boatload of them. But I don't fault them for being conservative. Where the fault is in the nastiness and how we relate to one another through our different communities. And it's not everyone. I had plenty of conservative friends, and the parents of friends who were conservative, but also acted like a shelter to me in my youth and kept me away from harm and danger. So it's a complicated relationship that I have remembering Huntington Beach fondly, because there was definitely many times in my youth where the F slur was used at me like it was nothing, like you could just toss that out, not
Wow.
knowing the kind of damage it would have on me for the rest of my life.
Sure.
I suffered from a lot of depression and anxiety, and that's natural response to when you are hiding who you are. I didn't come out until I was the age 17 and a half to my friends. And then by the time I was 18 years old, I had come out to my family.
Wow.
And I can think specifically of 6 death threats that I had off the top of my hand, and countless times where people tried to jump or attack me. It always
Wow.
got the worst when politics turned its evil eye towards the LGBTQ community as a whole, specifically right when George W. Bush wanted to add a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage in the United States. Whenever tools of government are used to apply pressure that is negative towards the LGBTQ people, it has a permission effect for all of the people whose anger lies just beneath the surface to act out and lash out at people who they don't understand. And this country has a history of that relationship with the LGBTQ community. And it's why eventually I had to leave.
Yeah, it's. I was, said, when Trump was elected, it was like, he made hating okay again, and and I think, again, thank God Biden is our president, but this kind of hate exists obviously today. I think in a way he kind of gave Trump sort of gave a wink and a nod that it's okay to can't talk today. He kind of made it okay again for that kind of hate to bubble up to the surface, and really sort of enabled it. Now, so how long has Pride Month been celebrated in Huntington Beach?
Usually the neighboring town of Long Beach, California, is where LGBT people go to celebrate Pride. However, about 2 years ago, Huntington Beach, in a unanimous vote of the council, decided to raise the Pride flag on the flagpoles and on city properties in Huntington Beach, city-owned properties. And it was under the understanding that for public safety reasons, we need to raise this flag, as it helps when youth see that they have a place to see that flag and that they can feel a sense of safety, belonging, and community. Remember, it's not being gay that causes depression and anxiety, but more of how the world isolates and contracts around you when you choose to express yourself. And that can end up in a lot of dangerous situations like self-harm, suicide, addiction, depression, all sorts of things. And under that understanding and logic, the city of Huntington Beach raised the Pride flag over city properties. So
what, or maybe the better question, who changed this? Who decided? I don't know if this is a bill, or I'm not sure how city government works in Huntington Beach, but what all of a sudden brought about this change that they wanted to make, or who brought about it?
Sure. Well, there's that old saying, elections have consequences. And in this last election, a 4-3 conservative majority was elected. And now we're in a situation where the conservatives have decided to make political promises that they would bring that flag down, specifically to some churches in the local area that use their pulpit to stoke hate and division.
Right.
And it happens to be the promise that was made to bring that Pride flag down. And the mayor Mayor recognized a motion brought forth by Pat Burns, a city council member, that very interestingly banned the pride flag. It's not an outright ban of the pride flag because the way the law was already set up, they had all of the tools that they needed to take the vote to bring down the pride flag. But they didn't choose to do that. What they chose to do instead was write a new rule that says no flags can be over the city of Huntington Beach's public property or displayed. Because when we think of flags, we think of flagpoles, but there are many ways to display the pride flag. And so what that means in the more complex understanding of it is they have a way to rewrite the rules that gives their voters the logical and easy conclusion that they are not homophobic because it's all flags, even though that this was never an issue until the pride flag went up. Right. So with that in mind, they authored this new crafty ordinance to say that this is not about the pride flag. This is about all flags, except for the United States flag, the flag of the state of California, the flag of Huntington Beach, and the POW war veterans flag. And I think that's what hurts the most is that there's kind of a disappearing mirage that they have put over the LGBT that say, oh, it's not like we hate you. We just don't want any flag that doesn't represent everybody.
Wow.
But the flies that were attracted to the crap that is this law proves otherwise, because when you're surrounded by people who scream hatred into the ether, you can only imagine how that this law and who was asking for this law in the beginning.
Wow. I'm kind of speechless, to be honest. I mean, it's clearly a sneaky way of making their hatred law. So let's get to the video. So you went to the city council meeting, where they were talking about this ordinance, and
right.
And you and I had never met, and I saw this video and I was just blown away. So let's take a look.
Good evening, council, mayor pro tem, city of Huntington Beach. Thank you for having me back in my hometown. My name is Stephen Martin. I'm from the Stonewall Democratic Club. I'm our elected at-large member, and I'm here representing our organization. I want to open up with a quote that I think this will unite across all generations of people, and I think you'll find it familiar. Imagine all of the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. John Lennon. I've never seen government work so fast in my entire life. And I give it to you guys for being efficient. But with that, isn't it not obvious that we are tearing the community apart? People are throwing out the words predator, all sorts of names coming from across the aisle that are just horrendous. That's not becoming of any of us, former Huntington Beach members or current Huntington Beach members. And it's obvious that it's tearing us apart. We are at each other's throats. And I'll take the 4 members who are supporting item 12 at their word, that they believe that the United States flag waves for all of us. I believe you. And that's why I challenge you to come wave it for us. Let's slow this down a little bit. We don't have to have this vote tonight. You have proven that you can get the votes and you can deliver this flag ban. But why don't we bring the two communities at odds together at one of your many beautiful parks, beaches, down at the pier, and have a cultural exchange and see if it changes people's minds? Because I think if we see each other as humans in a cultural space, culture is where we have art, food, music, conversation, political dialogue. And I think we can achieve this and build some bridges across the aisle to see that we're all just humans. So, yeah. If not, I'm afraid these arguments run hollow. Because that flag didn't wave for me when we signed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It didn't wave for me when we signed the Defense of Marriage Act. It didn't wave for the millions of people that were put into early graves because of bigotry and hatred. And I don't accuse anyone here tonight of that. But we know that it existed in the past, and I think the first step is to acknowledge that that has happened. And so if we could lament on how to bring these communities together, I think that would be huge. And if you do go forward with this ban, why don't you guys become the largest single donor to fight suicide in the queer community, or hunger, or poverty, or addiction? Show us that you care. If you believe that flag, Mr. Burns, waves for us, please help us wave it and show it. The Supreme Court has decided, thank you.
Wow. All I have to say, I mean, what comes across when I hear that, very eloquent speech that you gave is how passionate you feel about it. But, also when I hear that, I hear the hurt and the sadness. I mean, how did this ordinance make you feel? I mean, I can't even imagine.
It brings a lot of emotions to the surface just rewatching it because of how painful it was to be there all night. And I stayed there all the way up until the vote, which most members did not. What it made me feel was protective. There's too many queer youth that are born in every generation, in every family around the world. And knowing the dangers of what I went through in that time period, the 90s and the early 2000s, I felt an obligation to protect that flag for the next generation of LGBT youngsters. And it was very, very difficult to be there. At one point in the evening, when it was time for the vote and they were debating, they were making debate on the final vote on it. One of the police officers so lovingly came up to me and asked if I wanted some water because I looked pale and that I would look like I was about to faint.
Wow.
And I have to admit that it is exactly how I felt. I felt suffocating. Having leukemia is not an easy thing to live with. And you don't have a video of this, but I was there 1 month ago for the first introduction asking the city attorney to draft legislation. I didn't make it to the first reading, which was the second meeting, because my leukemia had relapsed and I had started a new medication. Luckily, the medication had stabilized me enough that I was able to make it for the final vote. And I have to tell you, I have intense side effects, and I felt the stress of that evening, the hatred that was being casted at me and at others in the community who had shown up in support of the LGBT Pride flag. And Huntington Beach is in the same place it was in the 90s and 2000s, consumed by hate for LGBT people, their visibility, and their humanity. As you saw in that clip, I asked, okay, if you move forward with this ban, I believe that you believe that flag waves for us. But you can show that you don't hate us by joining the fight. Be the largest single donor to fight suicide, poverty, hunger, addiction in our community. But that's not what they want. They don't want to be an island of refuge for people who are historically been maligned by community's actions. And so they use the tools of government to reignite that flame of hatred that used to sit just below the surface. And so it was a very intense night of emotions and a few days of recovery, as it was very emotionally taxing.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm personally disgusted with Huntington Beach. Just disgusted would probably be the best way to describe how I feel about this. These politicians, they should absolutely be ashamed of themselves, the inhumanity and the hate. It's literally disgusting. So okay, so on a positive note, I understand you have some news to announce for the first time here.
So I don't linger in my agony. I don't agonize, I organize, as Nancy Pelosi would say. And that's why we're announcing Operation Restore the Rainbow. It is a project that is currently being organized between me and a few friends, some members of the Stonewall Democratic Club, that is providing tools and action plans for members of the Huntington Beach community to respond to the flag coming down. I met mothers of 7 who were lesbians, and I met a former Real Housewife who has come out as a lesbian, and I met so many other great community members from participating in the actions in Huntington Beach. And we want to help give them the tools to be able to fight back. And so what we're going to be doing for the next 4 years, because this conservative majority was just elected in this last November election, is give them more and more tools, strategies, and open up their minds to the organizer's mindset that this is not the final straw. There are too many tools of oversight, and there are too many other governments that can get involved and intervene on our behalf. And so we're going to get them loud, we're going to get them organized, and we're going to make change. And by my word, I promise that flag will be on those flag poles again.
Yeah, I'm Stephen. My hat is off to you, and folks, this is a prime example why elections have consequences, and how this kind of hate can just snowball, and it has real world effects on all of us, and these folks are a bunch of cowards, but
they are a bunch of cowards.
But we have to fight. We have to stand up for what's right, and we have to vote. Elections have consequences. Well, Stephen, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. My hat goes off to you, but most of all, my heart goes out to you and all of the folks that are affected by this piece of hateful ordinance. City of Huntington Beach.
If I could just leave.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If I could just leave you with one little last word. Anti-LGBT legislations are proliferating around the United States. 407 bills have been introduced across this country, from city governments to county governments to state governments. Hate is on the rise, and to ignore it or to compare it to what the vile nature of it was in the past is to belittle the intensity of what we're being hit now. The problem that they chose to make happen, they chose to proliferate hate behind enemy lines in California, and we will stand up to them.
Amen. Stephen, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on our show, and look forward to having you back and hopefully sharing some brighter news on this. But what is the best way people can support you, find you on social media, and help fight this hate?
Right now, we're still building out our infrastructure, but if you would like to get in touch, please email me at info.restoretherainbow@gmail.com.
All right, very good. Stephen, thank you very much. Best of luck to you, and we're going to keep up with this story. Thank you again for coming on. Folks, Stephen Martin, ladies and gentlemen.